Ever got confused between active and passive insufficiency? Ever thought that such a simple topic is becoming a bit difficult? Well, that's exactly what we are here to discuss today. Hi guys, my name is Priya. I'm a sports physiotherapist currently working with Vidarbha Cricket Association. I have completed my master's in physiotherapy in 2017 and have been working in the field of cricket since last 3 years. So without further ado, I'm going to get into this video. Now, when I say active and passive insufficiency, the common word over here is the word insufficiency. Now, when I say the word insufficiency, what do I mean? I mean muscular insufficiency. Here you see muscular insufficiency. Now, what is muscular insufficiency? Muscular insufficiency is that when a muscle is supposed to do something and it's not able to do, that is what's called muscular insufficiency. Okay? When a muscle is supposed to do something and is not able to do it, then it is termed as muscular insufficiency. Now, these muscular insufficiencies are common only and only in two joint muscles. Muscles which cover two joints or which cross over two joints are the only muscles which are capable of having this kind of muscular insufficiency. Okay, so we are done with the word insufficiency. Now we are going to go to the other words in the term, that is active and passive. When I say the word active, what do I mean? When a muscle is in its active state, that is when it's trying to contract but it cannot contract, that time the insufficiency that happens is called active insufficiency. So if for an example, if I give you rectus femoris, okay, rectus femoris is a two joint muscle. It passes the hip joint as well as the knee joint. So when you are in a high sitting position, right, a high sitting position like a position sitting in a chair, your rectus femoris is stretched at the knee joint, right, because the knee is in a flex position. So when it is stretched at the knee joint, if you try to lift your leg from the hip, then it is not able to work at the hip joint, that is as a hip flexor. It is a secondary hip flexor, but it is not able to work as a hip flexor because it is stretched at the knee joint. That kind of insufficiency is known as active insufficiency, which is absolutely normal. Alright, so that is the term active insufficiency. Now, if I talk about passive insufficiency, the word passive, what does that mean? When I say the word passive, it means when a muscle is supposed to stretch, but it is not being able to stretch, then it is known as passive insufficiency. For example, I'll give the same example of rectus femoris muscle. When you're in a prone lying position, you're lying on your stomach and you're trying to flex your knee. Sometimes, in some people, you will see that the hip goes into flexion. Why does that happen? Because when you're trying to flex your knee and the hip is in the neutral position, the stretch comes at the rectus femoris at the hip as well as the knee joint. So, if the condition is normal, if the person has no insufficiency, then you should be able to do that with ease. But in some people, the hip will go into flexion because the rectus femoris is in passive insufficiency. It doesn't have the required length. In those cases, what happens is when you try to stretch the muscle at one joint, it will go into a spasmodic condition on the second joint. So it doesn't have the full length. The passive insufficiency depends on the length of the muscle. So that is the example for active and passive insufficiency. By now we have learned the terms active and passive insufficiency. Now what we are going to learn is why do you need to know these insufficiency? What's the importance of knowing these terms? So when I talk about the active insufficiency, like I gave in the example, in high sitting position, if you try to flex your hip with your knee remaining in a flexion position, it is the iliopsoas that is working and not your rectus femoris. So like this, you can differentiate the muscle groups. Suppose a person has pain in the hip region, you may be confused if it is rectus femoris the culprit or the iliopsoas is the culprit. So to differentiate those muscles, these active insufficiencies are very much required. Not just to differentiate the diagnosis, but to also train a specific muscle. If you want to train a glute, but you don't want to train the hams at that time, then you have to be able to differentiate them. So active insufficiency is very much required to differentiate those muscles. But Passive insufficiency. Active insufficiency is absolutely normal, but passive insufficiency is actually a pathological, because those muscles should be able to stretch on both joints. After a certain limit, not, but up to a certain limit they should be able to stretch, which is not happen in passive insufficiency. So why should you know passive insufficiency? Because sometimes the culprit of a muscle is the antagonist group. Sometimes people say they have back pain, but it's actually the hip flexors which are causing the pain, not the back muscles, not the hip muscles, not the glute muscles, the hip flexors. Not the glutes, not your hams, not your back, but the flexors. So for that to happen, for that to differentiate, you need to know that is the muscle in any sort of passive insufficiency. Because when passive insufficiency is there, the muscle group is not going to be of the length that is required. Hence, it will be causing a restriction at some or the other joint, causing the load to come in some other muscle, and that muscle will go into some sort of injury. So to know the pathology, you need to know what is passive insufficiency. Alright guys, so that is active and passive insufficiency for you. I hope you guys understood what I'm trying to say over here. So if you have any views about it, you can leave them in the comment section below and I'll go through them. If you want me to cover up any topic, I will definitely try to do that. So you can leave those in the comment section as well, and I'll try and make as many videos as possible for you guys. Alright, hope to see you next time. Bye bye.